According to a video footage posted on X, at least 10 Nigerian girls between 15 and 18 years have been rescued in Ghana after allegedly being trafficked for prostitution. The video footage shows the girls recounting their experiences, stating they were deceived by a relative and had their phones confiscated. The suspected trafficker, who has now been arrested, admitted to receiving 200 Ghana cedis, that's approximately 20,000 naira or $14 daily, from the girls' exploitation. Meanwhile, the Minister of Women Affairs and Social Development, Uju Kennedy Ohane, has warned hotel owners and managers across the country not to harbor underage girls in their facilities or risk being sanctioned. Joining us now is author and founder of the Preserved Childhood Foundation, Linda Nodiogo. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Morning, Molly.
This is a very heartbreaking conversation to have, but how deeply rooted is the problem of trafficking in Nigeria? We see it play out in different forms. Some of the time they are trafficked for labor, other times they're trafficked for prostitution. But give us a picture, if you can, of how very deeply rooted or how much of a problem we as a country have to face when it comes to conversations about trafficking.
Oh, well, we have a very big problem in Nigeria, especially currently with the rise in poverty, which is a major contributing factor to human trafficking. So, right, the statistics is at an all-time high, doubled with insecurity, which a lot of areas in the country is currently facing. So, be it human organ trafficking, for child labor, or sex trafficking. So it's a big issue now. And the major contributing factor is the hardship in the country and insecurity.
I mean, but there would always be, some level of hardship and insecurity, but to have these girls of these ages, we're talking young teenagers now, in other countries, in this particular case in Ghana, it shows that they went through a process. They were they were trafficked through a certain process. They were maybe deceived, or something. So, what do you think, we are lacking, in order to be able to prevent these things from happening?
We are lacking awareness and education on this area. We are lacking a lot of awareness because most times these traffickers, they either use force, coercion, or fraud. In the case of those girls, they were told they were going to work. And because of the hardship in the country, everybody's looking for a way out. So these trafficking rings, they have their agents. And in their case, the person who trafficked them is a family member, is someone known to them. So because of the lack of awareness in our local communities, especially, it is a big problem because they go down there to the village. And most times it's not just international. This trafficking happens locally too. People go to rural areas and they pick up young girls and boys and they bring them to the cities for cheap labor. So because of this lack of information, which is a huge gap, especially in rural areas, at least this news has broken. Most people who are online have seen this news, but people in rural areas do not even see this news. Tomorrow, someone else is out there also exploiting them, exploiting people, giving them false information, and sometimes these girls are forcefully taken from their homes. So it is a huge problem. I think they need for a social campaign to inform people, especially young girls, about this trafficking, because women and children are more vulnerable to traffickers.
Yeah. Do you have any figures, as to the average number of Nigerian girls that are scattered across the continent, currently being used as, sexual, slaves in different parts of the continent and maybe even outside the continent?
I do not have a specific statistics, a figure for that at the moment.
All right. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Say that again, please.
I do not have a specific statistics or figure for the number of girls that are being sent out of the country in different parts of the world, because it's not just the continent, in different parts of the world. And our borders are porous. Our security officials are corrupt. So, and most times data is not being collected. The accurate data is not being collected. So you cannot really tell the actual number of girls that are being trafficked.
All right, we'll come back to talk about that. But let's talk about what exactly is driving this. Would you say that we have, some people would talk about poverty being a key player in this situation. Others would say it's beyond poverty. There's some element of greed that is involved here. So what would you say are some of the norms or behaviors that contribute to this issue? How can we, as a society, be held accountable? What are the things we need to look within and address to ensure that, trafficking doesn't become the norm?
while poverty plays a part, I would agree that some sort of greed also comes to play when it comes to trafficking. Because you check the kind of things they are told, these girls, and yes, a lot of them come from poor families, or some of them are even runaways. They are vulnerable already. But greed in the sense that some of the things they are promised is not something that is reachable or attainable. But because they want more, because they seek for more, they make them vulnerable to these things. Another thing is limited education and awareness. And migration, and like I talked about, insecurity. The social media is another platform that traffickers also use. They tend to, show off a certain lifestyle that they want to use and lure these girls to want to belong to whatever it is they are doing. And then there is demand for cheap labor. Go out there in different homes. There are young children who are being used for cheap labor, and this is a major contributing factor, because when there is no demand, there is no supply. So we need to really look into these factors that has made human trafficking become the order of the day.
Well, I mean, if the demand and supply aspect, is almost going to be impossible to completely take out. It's not just Nigerians that are being trafficked. There's, human trafficking across the world, across the globe. What we, must do in Nigeria is to reduce the numbers and to try to protect these young girls as much as possible. So I want to talk about punitive measures, intelligence gathering, and, the likelihood of arresting some of the people who perpetrate these things, from family members who allow their younger ones to be trafficked, to, of course, the traffickers themselves. Has there been any improvement in the process, in arresting these persons, in blocking these networks, with which these girls are being trafficked lately?
I would say that we are a society that we react to news, and most times we are not proactive to these things. Every day we hear breaking news of these things, but most times it is when it has happened. And now that we've reacted to this news, I don't think the required investigation is carried out to ensure that, because from this person, this trafficker that has been caught, if proper investigation is done, other trafficking rings will be discovered. So I think the government and our policymakers need to look into this. Currently, it is, I think the sentence is between 5 years to life imprisonment. But most of the time, these people are let out of prison after 5 years to continue what they are doing. So I think we need stronger laws, and our security agencies need to be educated. They need to even be more to ensure that they are doing what needs to be done, to ensure these traffickers do not carry on their activities with impunity in our society. Then I think local communities, religious leaders and traditional rulers should be also put involved with the activities of NAPTIP, which is the National Association for Prohibition of Human Trafficking of Persons. So I think all these things need to be put in place. The corruption in our security agency, amongst our security agencies, it's very, very important that that is addressed. Because sometimes they see these girls being moved in their numbers and they don't ask questions once they are bribed. So it is a big problem.
Okay, now let's talk about support. Now we've just heard the news about the girls who have been rescued and will be returned to Nigeria shortly. Would you say that we have systems that strongly support these girls, their rehabilitation, some form of trauma support to help them heal through the trauma they've been through and rehabilitate them into society?
I would want to point out that the first mistake that has been made is showing off the faces of these girls. Their faces are trending already on social media, and that's like the first mistake. When you're trying to rehabilitate someone, you do not put out their image online. Okay, so I think that's something we need to address when news like this break out, to protect the identity of these girls. And yes, there might be a few girls for rehabilitation for them, but most times it is not long-standing. As they are brought home to Nigeria, a few things, meet and greet, all those things. And next thing, they are sent home. They are sent home to that poverty that drove them to this point in the first place. And you find that a lot of these girls get re-victimized. So I think something needs to be set up to reorientate these girls for proper counseling, because of these girls they've been used for sex workers. So there really needs to be reorientation and counseling for the survivors, and some form of employment or empowerment for them, so that they do not need to go back, or they will not be victimized in things like this.
Yeah. Just to share some statistics that I found, the government of Nigeria investigated 1,242 cases of human trafficking, including 511 sex trafficking cases, 282 labor trafficking cases. The government also identified 1,634 victims, including 841 sex trafficking victims and 543 victims. It's also initiated prosecutions of 78 suspects, 67 for sex trafficking and 11 for labor trafficking. So it's a mess. It's a complete mess. And obviously NAPTIP and other bodies need to, of course, step in to help reduce this. But, our borders are porous. The illegal migration is still a thing that happens, in Nigeria. And, these are things that still need to be tackled. Are there male victims? Can you share with us, if there's also, victims, the male child, victims of trafficking?
Yes, while women and girls are more vulnerable to trafficking, of course, there are male victims. A lot of them, the hawkers you see on the streets, even in and outside Nigeria and our neighboring African countries, these young boys are also trafficked for different reasons, even for sexual exploitation. Yes, most times we think it's just the girls. The boys too. They are used as sex slaves in different parts of the world. So the boys are also part of this statistic. While the girls and the women are more, the boys are, and even men, anybody can be trafficked. Some people of different gender and different ages. Remember, it is about coercion, it is about fraud, coercing people to do certain things against their wish. And most times they are told they are going out of the country. When our people were brought back from Libya, we can see that it was people, both male and female. They are promised better life out there. And when they get there, their passports are seized. And at the end of the day, they are used for cheap labor. And most times they're not paid at all. So yes, even the men and the boys are part of it.
Okay.
All right. Linda Unodiogu, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And we look forward to seeing better strides being taken, especially when it comes to conversations about trafficking, and less of our young people being trafficked. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. All right.